Hello, Valuetainment's sources, including the news. They have collusions with Sean Puppy Combs, with people at Trinity College, involved with at 2011, March of 2011, involved with a Joshua Schumack, a Joshua Julian, and a Joshua Stryker. A Joshua Stryker is involved with one of the ones involved with some untimely deaths and some murders intercities that were connected with some intelligence family on my street who have roles with an untimely death at Trinity College, and people on my street who made confessions tied to that, and other ones involved. And they also brought up a forced principal child abuser, and people that were involved with the Connecticut corrections offices and judicial branch offices are increasingly tied to child sexual and medical offenders of kids. People involved with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, his lawyer, Robert Chevalier, and co-defendants of theirs, and family members of co-defendants of former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin. Various natures of federal criminals and ones tied to them and their family members have been sticking fake things, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people into databases. The intelligence community recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed they have a FBI with Eric Jensen and a Mike Pandolf and a Ray Reynolds involved with their educators, and they lied to a Nicola Jett. I never had a class with her. A whole bunch of people tied to former Mayor Gold involved with putting fake things in databases, and then they're hiding it years later. And as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack at the World Trade Center and spots next to it, including the court next to it. And the court itself put a sequence shift inside the database as their collusions with names on my street involved interstates and internationally with a whole bunch of different countries involved with them, foreign and domestic intelligence. Collols are not legitimately with the intelligence and with the military. They're involved, and with the names next to Hartford Hospital. Sometimes it's their educators involved though, but increasingly they have roles with people tied to body dumping spots and them sequence shifting since before they came to my school. Increasingly, Ray Colol has people involved though with my fourth grade class and my fifth grade class and my sixth grade class when they were in other classrooms involved with people with body dumping spots and mayors and multiple police departments involved with them stacking wire crime acts and methods, fake transcripts, fake ties to kids. Wethersfield police faked conversations with me as a kid, now as an adult. There's an officer who used the name Darth Vader. They interbranched. They've been switching names of all sides of criminal and civil cases in Connecticut. They are the ones involved with the World Trade Center names and names next to it with all kinds of natures of organized crime, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. They couldn't afford to have discerned what was recorded in the World Trade Center attack context. It was effectively used to consolidate the self-value roles with that and blaming other things others on ourselves, but also screening the breaching method. Increasingly, there's a Keene family involved with that, people involved with wire crimes, the Wethersfield police and the judicial branch officers involved with them with the identity theft, fraud, slanders, with their kids too. I never saw their kid on the inside of a campus in my life. Dan Keene, I never had they put me in a to go against him for class president. I never got to speak. I never got to see him. I never signed up for anything. They're doing fake things in the databases to put fake exceptions. And is one of the things involved with the Dan Keene and his mother and father with the World Trade Center attack, with the DeMoro family. A whole bunch of their neighbors are involved with body dumping spots and sequence shifts, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And like Enzo Fienza is recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed with his cousins too, with people all along Two Route Highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane and conjunctions to it. Involved also with the person in my fourth grade class that lived across the street from them on Two Route Highway, a South Saviello, increasingly involved with body dumping spots. And the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, one of a serial killer. That's serial killer. And people involved with the state police with them, and foreign and domestic military and the FBI involved with a South Saviello and a Morin family. I don't know if that's the Morin family with like a Morin group, and they're speaking in the recording things with the town offices. and with the government access television, involved with all kinds of predicate acts, with the child abuser campus. And they're being coached by retired police chiefs involved with the 80 Carriage Hill Drive, and involved with the Dillon family planting evidence on all sides of my house. Before my new neighbors moved in, there's an Annie Dillon, and she uses the name Annie or Anna. And Dillon also involved with the Kevin Dillon, with a whole bunch of people with predicate acts on my street, and rolls with them with home break-ins, with Wethersfield police and the retired police chiefs involved with their intimate ties too, with the same houses near me, involved with two Mazzucato Bakery and a modern pastry too, with the John Maiano, and a whole bunch of people tied to them, planting identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts. Their rules putting predicate acts with facts and databases at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, increasingly with intelligence involved with identity theft, fraud, slingers, putting fake things in databases in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and with names with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices increasingly involved. So these are also like Eric, a Mark Violet, and others have roles with the intelligence family on Zion Street with my neighbors. And my past neighbors, they were switching names, I don't know. And the police were forcing them to say nothing, with arrests in the courts too that have been torturing them. In other words, and they're involved at Trinity College with a bunch of people tied to the 80 Carriage Hill Drive, and the people on the streets parallel involved with them with predicate acts through time. Increasingly with the news too. The news attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. They have intelligence all along Route 3, which since they were kids, and conjunctions to it and conjunctions to that, like Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, are increasingly involved with judges and prosecutors, personally and professionally involved with people with the name Collo and Tomorrow, and tied to them, like Heather Hansen and her educators, involved with a whole bunch of men and women that are involved with sexual and medical abuses of little kids. And there are proofs that they took part with abuses of her, even if she was influenced to report abuses by some people told her to lie and confess that, like the FBI associated with Heather Hansen. And she put fake natures of ties to me behind my back as her roles with people with the home break-ins in the area and federal evidences crimes on my street. Identity theft, fraud, slanders with her educators behind my back. I never had a class with Heather Hansen. They put her in a middle school class with me to make a fake exception, and with Joe DeMauro and her other boyfriends involved at the same time with Joy DeMauro. Then they confessed that at the same time, and then they begged me not to say anything, and they were pretending to fight with each other. And that's the only context I know them in, like planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures, ties to me, and like with a group, and at the sides entrance of, through the years, at the side entrances of Millwoods Park, increasingly there are people have been planting evidences with them and with former mayors, increasingly with educators involved putting predicate acts with facts and databases with sexual and medical offenders of kids. Some of them are named Leahy. They also pretended through the mail to my family that I had conversations with them, a Leahy family. And in those conversations, they pretended the whole fake transcripts. And they pretended, and one of them, and they pretended I spoke about one of the little kids around their own kids. See, they have their own kids involved with some prosecutors and judges. Brian Silver is involved with multiple courts, family members involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids with a Leahy family, and people tied to a Rick Cianfaglione, and with a Kevin Harris involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids, putting predicate acts with facts and databases, identity theft, fraud, slanders, little tricks too, to have things recorded to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. Whole bunch of people at Quinnipiac University put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, with a Fred Grisey, who's also recorded a bunch of ways involved with the F.B.I. and with courts with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and people with modern pastry involved with the Maiano family with sexual and medical offenders of kids on all sides of Hartford Hospital, with the businesses and houses there. Also, that the Maiano family recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with them, and with sequence shifts. I didn't know him until his name was repeated to me a bunch of times. And then the Ray Claw that was in my grade all the way up till I was in high school, a senior, and then they made me stay back too. Increasingly, that teacher that made me stay back, I never had a personal conversation with her, two-time Irish speech class teachers that have roles with Washington, D.C., corruption, criminal foreign influence, used remotely criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot, pretending not to realize. They're putting all kinds of predicate acts with facts in databases. That's increasingly people involved with the Mike Fandoff with their syntax too, with the Washington, D.C., and those educators that are increasingly involved with wire crimes on my street, all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions. They have collusions put in the same sequence shifts and fake motivations and screening their roles with a whole bunch of other countries, where how they're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and their collusion all along Route 3 and all along Route 3 and conjunctions to it with their confessions too, and all along Route 175 and the conjunctions to it. The same ones increasingly involved from other areas with the Collusion House and the Smith House, with the police forms forging and switching names, and their extended family members involved with falsified police reports with them, refusing to get on paper one name in sequence, and making confessions of how they put arrays of falsified police reports, changing the arresting officers' names, who's involved with it. In other words, Hartford Wethersfield Police and Whiting Forensics have roles with the Joshua Julian, with digital crimes too, and with sexual and medical crimes and medicines crimes, with a Mendez police forms family and some retired police chiefs with houses near me involved with them with that. And they put me in fake conversations with themselves at Wethersfield Police Station and when I was a kid too. And they pretended with the news too, fake conversations with me at the same time, WFSB. Now they're leaking their roles with the Saudi attackers before the attack with that, which was after the attack. And they have a whole bunch of other countries involved with them. WFSB, Channel 3 News. They have Gail King and people tied to her at Central Connecticut State University. And next to it, also with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, various courts and their intimate ties, involved with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and mass differences, racketeering worse than war crimes. We're going to pay attention to why and how they left out black people's whites of eyes. They can't afford to have discern what nature shows us how to read American history. They have our founders' communications replaced, even though it was declassified, even though nature itself shows it to us. We're going to pay attention to why and how James Madison's plan involved the counter-extortion of George Washington too. You guys won't even allow honesty regarding the extortion of George Washington and how they used James Madison's plan, but how and why the slavery was forced, still entrenched. You guys have obligations to stop preventing voices from demonstrating that, pretending you don't see research, while you're tactically delusions rot and can't even discern it because the experts on reason are involved with this Diddy too. Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people involved with drugs and medicines crimes. Even if all that stuff was made up and he's an agent and they're directing him to fake things, that Diddy's involved with Hartford Hospital and Trinity College, with the people on my street involved with untimely deaths and federal evidences crimes at Trinity College, identity theft, fraud, slams behind my back there too, with this Joshua Stryker and this Dean Alford. Please get them on paper with the officer who used the name Officer Darth Vader. There were some murders and untimely deaths that were brought up intercities involved with it. And they brought up the principal child abusers campus that they were forcing with names that were abused by other first child abusers years ago. Now they're adults forcing out other kids. In other words, get them on paper, one name in sequence, fear.